there. Right. Back here in studio with our conversation. We've had, let me come to you, Kabila la Vijana.
Yes.
We've had what the ODM party has. Just briefly, if you can comment on what
SGODM has said. I think this is the best moment and this is the best time for Kenya to take a turn. And if the president and the government is not going to listen to what is happening, then I think we are heading to a wrong direction. Okay. You know, on my way here, I was listening to my brothers. You know, just for a light moment, Ken here, we used to be with him in the party.
I'm still in the party. I'm still a member of the party. You see, there are two Ken. There's Kennedy Sankara, there's Ken Bab.
And there's Kennedy. You know, Kennedy, we were with the Kennedy when ANC joined us.
Okay.
Akapiga chenga katuacha in this hot soup.
No,
you know, what I want to say is this.
And I was not part of their conversation. You know, so I don't just join people blindly. If he talked to William Ruto at a personal level and decided to join him, I didn't include me, I didn't buy the ideology. I ship out.
So what I want to say, the conversation that we're having as a country, this is the best conversation. And if I were the president, this is the time he needs to come down and listen what the youths are saying. Demonstrations are enshrined in the Constitution, and they must be listened. And I want to thank all the Gen Zs, wherever they are, all the youths. And let me tell you,
some of them are seated on this particular table.
Who are seated here. And I want to confirm here, you know, 60% of the youths who are outside in these streets now, majority of them voted for this government.
Very true.
60% of those who are in the street.
Extreme disappointment.
So this total disappointment, and the president must listen. Now, as people sikiza, he has to shuka. Yeah, he has to come down.
So from where you sit, you know, you represent a youth, of course, Kabila la Vijana there.
Yes.
Are we not communicating right as the youth of this country that the president is not listening to you? Because hearing you, of course, is hard. It's hard because this is very loud everywhere. You know, but why is he not acting on some of the things that you're putting across?
When the demonstration began, Brian, they were very peaceful. Youths came to streets, they demonstrated very peacefully. And they went back. On Thursday, instead of listening on what youths were agitating for on Tuesday, he sent more policemen. I get that. I think as youths, we've tried to communicate. The information is home. But the arrogance that we are seeing from the government side, everybody knows, I belong to the government, I campaign for this government. I'm in the UDA party, but we've tried to speak even for the officials in the party. We've tried to tell them, the SD, go talk to the president, let him talk down. But what we are seeing is the arrogance from the majority leader, the arrogance from Osoro, the arrogance from the leaders from the government. So I think it's time for them to listen. This is the best moment.
You say you campaign for this government, Jafet. This is the thing. I'd like to believe you're still part of government, right? Are you?
You know, I'm not part of the government.
Okay, but do you still support the government?
Until they come down.
Until they come down?
Yeah.
So what would you say is the reason as well? Because I'd like to believe if the government itself needs, even if it's not listening to the whole population, needs to listen to the youth within its institution, its ranks and all that.
You know, number one, we don't have those youths within the government because we have not been given that opportunity. The last time I was in the office, we tried to raise issues with the party leadership. And we said, since we have no access to State House, kindly, as you visit the president, take this to the president. The problem that we are seeing here are MPs, first-time MPs, some members of parliament, some people around the president who got to power and the power got into their heads. I don't know where they got all this money that they're distributing each and every weekend in fundraising. There's a kind of arrogance that got into these people.
You are not here, but we are buying the same sentiments.
There's a kind of arrogance that got into these people. There is a certain, you know, give me a difference. In the last regime, we were complaining about Matiang'i. Oh, Matiang'i is arrogant. Give me the difference between Matiang'i and Kimani Ichung'wah. We were complaining about Kibicho. Can you give me the difference between Farouk Kibet now and Kibicho? Give me the difference between the former DCI, Kinoti, and these are Kinaitumbi. There's no difference. So what they must do is to come
The
down.
outcome of any of those 3 options, it's up to him. But for now, this is the best time. It is not about waiting until so many lives are lost. That's what he did with the finance bill. By the time he withdrew it, lives have been lost. And this particular protests were out of hand. So we should not always wait for the last minute, or we should not wait for pressure from the international communities. By the time he came to address the question of the finance bill, the UN Secretary General was discussing the states. We're talking about the attack that were being made on the protesters. I think this is the right time to handle this scenario. If he is waiting for tomorrow or the day after, I think he will be looking at this in a very thin lens. In short, if we are a country that is governed by the law and we want a president who can run us according to our constitution, let us have him also operate by the law. If there are those who are arrested, let them not be taken around. On Friday last week, myself and 2 lawyers were walking around police stations. We were looking for someone who has been arrested by the police. Ideally, if arrested in the CBD, you should be taken to the central police station. We went there, you are told your person is Muthaiga. You go to Muthaiga. So you feel so bad when you meet an OCS and he tells you, Angelo Mtwako around Rongai. You go to Rongai, you are told he's in Kajiado. What are we? What kind of an example are we showing to these young boys? We have cops who are killing people in broad daylight. We're not addressing the issue, but we're now addressing the question of 4 boys who have maybe sneaked into a supermarket and stole goods. Yes, that's a criminal issue, but let's address every wrongful issue holistically.
All right. And there you have it, live pictures from Waiyaki, where we know that police had been pushed from Kangemi flyover to now the Communications Authority officers along Waiyaki, where these officers, together with the other journalists, had to leave the area. And we're now joined by Frederick Muchiri, who's joining us live via a phone, just to give us details of what is happening. Fred, keep us abreast. What's happening right now?
Thank you, Zainab. I can hear you loud and clear. And what you're seeing right now, police officers drawn from different units. Let me switch to my Kiswahili. Kile ambacho nakiona ni kwamba maafisa wa polisi ambao walikuwa wamerudishwa nyuma kwa hivi sasa wameitana maafisa wa polisi wengi kweli. Vikosi kama 4 hivi vimeletwa na vimefika hapa kwenye eneo hili, eneo la Kangemi. Tumerudishwa chini hadi kwenye jumba hili la Communication Center karibu na duka kuu la Quickmart, ambako vijana hapa walikuwa wanataka kuvamia duka hili, lakini maafisa wa polisi wakakimbia, wakaitana na muona kamanda wa polisi wa Nairobi Bungei yashafika hapa. Amefika na vikosi vyake, vikosi 4, naona vikosi vya AP, vikosi vya GSU, vikosi vya polisi wa kawaida, na vile vile wale wa kufanya fujo uone, wale tunaita GSU. Kwa hivi sasa wamefika hapa kuhakikisha kwamba wale vijana ambao walikuwa wametorosha maafisa wa polisi, walikuwa wamewarusha hizo mtazamaji wetu. Kwa upande wa kushoto, maafisa wa polisi wanaendelea kufika hapa kwa wingi. Kwa upande wa kushoto, picha ambazo unaziona hivi sasa ni maafisa wa polisi ambao ni wa kupigana, ukifanya fujo wanakabiliana nawe. Wameingia ndani ya Kangemi hapa. Vijana walikuwa wengi sana kupita wale maafisa wa polisi. Maafisa wa polisi hawakuwa wengi sana, lakini hivi sasa wamefika. Naona gari zaidi ambazo zimefika hapa ni zaidi ya 15 ambazo zimekuja kuwasaidia wale ambao walikuwa hapa, na washaingia kule ndani ya eneo hili la Kangemi, ambako kulikuwa na vijana chungu nzima. Waliwaweza maafisa wa polisi kadhaa ambao walikuwa hapa, walikuwa wakipigana nao kwa zaidi ya saa 2 hivi, saa 3 wakapigana nao hadi wakatoroshwa. Nafikiria zile vitoza machozi ziliweza kuwaishia, wakaweza kutoroka, lakini mmoja wao ambaye alikuwa ni kamanda wao akakimbia na kuitisha usaidizi zaidi. Sasa wamefika maafisa wale wa GSU ambao wanaingia kule ndani kukabiliana na wale ambao walikuwa wanajaribu kuingia kwenye duka hili la Quickmart ambalo liko kwenye barabara kuu ya Waiyaki kuelekea kule Nakuru. Kwa hivi sasa naona maafisa wa polisi wameingia na kupanda kule juu ambako barabara ilikuwa imefungwa kwa zaidi ya saa 5. Saa zile ambazo tulifika hapa, barabara hiyo imekuwa imefungwa kwa muda sana, lakini nafikiria maafisa wa polisi sasa wanapanda kule juu kuhakikisha kwamba wanafungua hiyo barabara. Sisi tutakuwa tukiwafuata wale maafisa wa polisi ambao wamepanda kule juu kuona iwapo wataondoa.
That is accountable. A demonstration that is focused with achievable targets, that we want accountability when it comes to public management of resources. We want accountable spendings. We will find the president knows very well that we are agitating the debt refinancing strategies. Then he says, because you have rejected the finance bill, I am going to borrow. Okay. We are against borrowing. There are countries in Africa that have never borrowed. Look at countries like Libya, Botswana, and another one. They've never borrowed even a cent from IMF. But IMF is a very wrong institution, because today as we speak, I was eating maize yesterday. This maize happened to be organic, very sweet, and some pop-up from the village. I can tell you, Brian, organic farming is the most sustainable way of farming. But IMF, as we know, has got 100% rule of seed certification. These certified seeds, we are fighting, they create climate change crisis. They create funds that do not even get to Africa. Then they are the ones benefiting from these funds. Then they create for you punitive laws like the eco levy. Are we at par with manufacturing giant economies like Japan, China, and America? Are they taxing their people on eco levy? Where do you think of taxing Kenyans? The imagination of thinking of introducing that tax with it even being rejected and dropped. Dropping is not an issue. We must investigate the motivation behind the suggestion. Okay. How do you even think of suggesting such? You want to tax manufacturers ab initio. You are taxing manufacturing, raw materials vis-a-vis finished products. When I import a finished product, you only tax me on the import duty. But here I am manufacturing the same here. You want to tax me on the raw material?
That's why Brian, before Govt come in, we are more concerned about the motivation. Because, let me tell you, if young people, not people, but young Kenyans could have not stepped out to tell this government that we are not going to pass this thing, that thing could have passed by now, shamelessly. Yeah. Let me tell you, let me ask you a question, Brian. You're a journalist, and I believe you do research here and there. Why do you think a poison has an expiry date? Yet it is a poison. If this water expires, it becomes poison. But a poison in its existence has an expiry date. So what happens after it has expired? That's an explanation that the system is already rigged. This system as it is rigged. And that's why when the president was now rejecting his own finance bill, which his puppets in parliament had passed, and now the puppets are sitting behind were clapping, and you see Osoro shamelessly this guy has now rejected. Let me tell you,
the journalist who is asking, what about development guy?
It is a shame. You know why we are so much bitter with the young members of parliament misbehaving? Those are the people who make the situation look like youth cannot be trusted by leadership. Yes. Because somebody like Osoro, a young man, somebody like Shungo, a young man.
Actually, this parliament has given a reason, but that is harm to young people.
Given a leadership opportunity to lead a national assembly. When we had people like Kenneth Marende, people like Ole Kaparo as speakers of this country, you could switch off your TV, close your business, and go and listen to what the parliament is doing.
The 10th parliament.
Look at that. Today, what happens? You don't even care whether they are passing the bill or nothing, because these guys have shown us that they've reduced this house to an individual interest. What is the boss saying?
You heard what Millie Odhiambo said, that as they were running out to safety, she came back, she left her bag only to find the appropriation bill being passed by parliament. So you wonder,
not even parliament, by members
of UDA. So do we really have a house that represent the people?
Let's remember now, put it on context.
Listen, in the last campaign, we were agitating for youth leadership, and we really worked hard, tirelessly. Day and night to ensure that the youthful members that we had, the youth That's when, as Kabela Vijana, we decided to sponsor some.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that? But unfortunately, when these people were elected and got into power, power got into their heads. Young and youthful leadership in parliament are misleading Kenyans. The arrogancy, the kind of arrogance that we are seeing in them, not only in the government, also in the political party that we fought for, in a party that we built. In fact, we were moving from one house to another, doing the registration, membership registration for UDA. But when it came to even the grassroots elections, you know, there's some who are calling me and asking me, why are you quiet on what is happening? I told them, where it has reached with this government, then we have to wash our hands. You know.
But if you wash your hands, my friend, why you
that's
washing
why
your hands?
You see, and joining the revolution.
Listen,
You
we
see
are
what-
joining
what-
the
what-
revolution.
what Govt is
and that's
saying,
why we're in the streets.
What Govt is saying is very sad. Let me tell you. I want to speak from a political party perspective. Do you want to tell me that in UDA, as it stands right now, or before, during elections, towards nominations, Karen Nyamu was the best woman to sit in
No.
I'm not being personal,
No, you know,
but look at
If you do not
how does
allow
a
us to
nominated
speak
member
some of
come
these
and tell
things
us?
here.
How does a nominated member come and tell us that we have talked with somebody, we are going to give tampons to primary and high school students? Do you know what a tampon is? A tampon cannot be used by a girl who is still a virgin, Bana. That's what
Mention
it
the nominated
Let's make
members.
it blank.
Okay.
So what we are saying, what this guy is saying is true. At the nomination point, that is where the youth were shot on the head.
Directing opportunities to
On
the
the
young
head.
people. And
Whatever
the
that
people
was in
against
the
the
streets.
president today
And that's what
are
I'm
his
telling
own
you,
men.
60% of the youth in these streets, majority of them are UDA members.
Disappointed.
Disappointed.
Extremely.
Lied to
A good
beyond
number of
repair.
But we are saying these people must go. Bana.
Mwaka huu na ile next month.
Okay,
na
let's
wiki
come back to
ijayo.
one of the things that I've had the ODM parties to speak
pesa ya
to.
kununua gasi
And
ya
in terms of this disappointment, that a lot of people feel like they're very disappointed, especially with their members of parliament. And the ODM says they should initiate the process of
parliament situation. We have seen leaders from
The probe into the deaths of Rex Masai, Evans Kiraitu, and the 37 others were killed in the protests last week. And also, foreign embassies are warning nationals as the protests continue. That's
A lawyer, a teacher.
Okay,
Who
so
is in the
let me come
national
to let's
finish.
SRC aende nyumbani kwanza bwana.
As I finish, we really need, before you ask me the question, we really need to re-examine the justification and bare minimums we are going to make is to have
I need to finish with
Take a glass of water.
Jaffa. Your water is down here, but I think you guys need a glass of water. So I was talking about the issue to do with representation, especially when it comes to members of the National Assembly. And we are in the process of recalling that. And I want us to exhaust that first before we get into where the mistakes were done when it comes to appointment in
or the question of shooting people. That is, I think, the objective, or that's the dream that our country must have someday. In the US, you have university students who are being arrested, for example, against the anti-Palestine and the anti-Gaza war. It is not happening this way. They are coming out, they are picketing, they are sometimes obstructing road accesses. The worst that may happen is that some of them may be arrested and put in police bands and taken to court. The kind of shooting, you know, the last thing that should happen in Kenya is the question of killing a Kenyan. That must not happen. The question of injuring or damaging someone's property must not happen. But where we are, we are at a scenario whereby the police have to come and save Quickmart. It's a very, it's a grim situation or a scenario that we are in. That means my own place or where I live or where you live may not also be safe. Where shall we find ourselves in? If you look at what has happened in Angola some time back, it got to a point when the private persons had to arm themselves, just like in Johannesburg, to protect their own property. And that tells you it will be an anarchy. Because the owner of Naivas, tomorrow or the day after, if you damage it, he will end up armoring himself, or he will end up getting some weaponry to protect his own property. So where are we finding ourselves in? Are we going to is the situation going to get out of hand? Should these protesters who were initially peaceful now think of rummaging the goods at Quickmart? as we could hear from the news again, Quiver Lounge in Rongai, Kitengela, those places, that must not happen. If that happens, we agree for the police to come in with the objective of bringing in law and order. It is not about killing, so that now we're able to suppress everything and go back to the default mode. Now we can have a discussion on now again how we can have the protest. Because protest, we can have it next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but for now, the situation seems to be getting a bit out of hand. We also need the President or the CS for Interior to come out and tell us, for now, we suspend everything. We can have a conversation. If that conversation fails, we can come back to the streets. But Saizi, things are getting out of hand. Clearly, things are really, really getting out of hand, because it's only this number of police officers whose even lives are at risk, who are the ones who are now in our streets. Now, when the police are also away from the media cameras, we do not know what they may do to those particular persons. Again, we may end up finding scenarios of people who are being told they're being tortured or being killed in their houses. And as a country, we must shun away from that. Let's read the script of the other states. Libya has had such a thing. Today it is normal. Sudan and many other places have suffered a similar scenario. So let's not get to that particular point. That's why we need, all these boys will not hear Kindiki they may not listen to Raila or myself. They want audience with who? With the president. And even if one day he will take a vehicle and go to Baraza in Kiambu or Kangemi or even Rongai, let him do that. These are the people who have put him in office. If they will stone him, it's up to them. Or if they will give him the audience. But there are basic things that he needs to do for now, so that at least we can have some sense of normalcy. Right. Yourself and myself, we do not know when we live here how we are going to get our own houses, and that is not the kind of country we have. For me, my office is not open. She could not go to our place of work today. My associates could not come to office. Where are we getting at? The basic person in our building is the cleaner. Today she could not report to work. What are you doing to our income? A Quick Mart, which is just next to us, even if I go to work, I cannot buy the basic stationery I used to buy. That's why I'm saying, let's not look at this in the normal sense. Let's look at it in an extraordinary way, so that we can see, let tomorrow not be today. As a country, at least we can have some sense of sense.
And Gashui, you know what Suleiman says, we're here, and so the president must first address the situation before we even go to the policy issues and changing the bigger picture. But here we are. So what does he need to do when he said, look, I'm going to go to Twitter, or is it X?
So we are saying, Kenya, currently as it is, we don't have that honesty person who can stand up and do the right thing. Exactly. That's why these people are in the streets. So we will recall you as we continue cleaning.
In that process, and I've mentioned, there's, like you just said, you collect signatures, you identify the issues. Up to now, we have more than 1,000 issues to recall these members of parliament, more than it. But now the issue is, let me tell you, Bran, you are you are a journalist, but some of these things are, in as much as there is independence of the media. You from inside here and other journalists, you know that independence of yours has been curtailed, and you are not free to talk about. Let us talk about it on your behalf. Get this from me. Then the non-existence of IBC in this country is intentional. It is intentional. And we do not have, just like he said, we do not have honest leaders in that house. That house is a house at test. And it's a house of question.
So Ken Babu, my question is this. We want to do the process of recalling, right?
Okay.
But now we are not trusting the institutions that have been put in place to help us, carry out that particular exercise to the end. We are like, we will collect signatures, yes, but when it comes to a point where the speaker gets to announce that members of your constituency have actually recalled you, that now we want to declare your seat vacant. Okay. You don't trust that is a possibility.
What is it? What is it about these young people that is so bothering, that they cannot even allow me to do what I need to do? Probably has good intentions, I don't know. But if he did have good intentions, the first thing I would do is recall my executive, recall everyone, okay? Either reshuffle, dismiss, anyone who has a corruption case.
And anything will happen.
And because we've realized that this process, it's somehow curtailed in the process. There's a curtailment.
Every single process in Kenya has been curtailed.
That's why we are saying, and you are hearing the voice of people out there, that this guy, the entire government should go home. The president has the power to wake up and say that we are disbanding this government.
So, Bran, yes, before we in on the recall, this is a better said than done practice in the Kenyan political arena due to the procedural technicalities that are raised by the political class. As far as recall is concerned, it is not a huge process though, but the politicians in place are making it very difficult because under Article 104, in reference or as quoted with Article 97 and 98, they denote they acknowledge the authority of the people to recall a legislator. But now let us speak of the process. The process first initiates or begins with IBC. The recall stages, the petitioner, who is a registered voter, is to collect signatures from at least 30% of the registered voters in that constituency. And the signatures must include at least 15% of voters in at least half of the wards in the constituency. So that is process one. The second process, the petitioner submits the collected signatures to the IEBC during submission, and petition has been submitted a list of grounds of impeachment. On the grounds, we have gross misconduct, violation of the constitution, an electoral offense, blah blah. They form 4 grounds, or 3 or the 4 grounds that constitute the removal of an MP from office. The IBC will then verify and validate the signatures.
Calling your executive to order, you know, because that's one of the things that young people keep on saying. We have these issues because we keep seeing these characters, these people, what they're doing, they're hemorrhaging. We are seeing a lot of theft. We're seeing a lot of arrogance, intimidation from these particular officers. And it's not necessarily the president himself, but his cronies and his agents, the people who he has delegated mandates to. You're going to run this ministry, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. There are elements of, you know, poor ethics from all these people. So to extend an olive branch, first of all, do away with them, or at least call them to order, reinforce. Rein in on them, rein in on these characters. And then now from there, it becomes easier.
In Kenya, as things stand today, we would wish to recall all the MPs who voted I vote yes, Mr. Speaker, for the finance bill that was just expunged from the budget. But now when I, as a registered voter, because I know after on 15th of August or so, I am going to lead the people of Kisumu East in collecting signatures against one Mr. Shakil Shabir. Where will I take them to? Where is the IBC? So the constitutional crisis that has been created by hijacking of the process is unconstitutional. The IBC is there. It is the representation that is not there. Because an IBC is not a creation of a political process. An IBC is a creation of the Constitution. It is there in the Constitution. But now placement of individual to execute the roles of the Commission is where we draw the line. We have political interest at play. We really need to have an institution that is solely responsible for the people, because it is installed in the office by the people. So this entire scenario is a problem created by our own MPs. Why are we even speaking of collecting signatures? Then where do we take them? So on grounds that are currently justifiable, as we see them in the country, we can send the entire 13th Parliament.
Not even dressed in the police regalia. They are dressed as plain clothes. So someone is dressed in plain cloth, he's wearing a mask, and there's the AK-47. What more are you trying to tell the people of Kenya? See, these are the simple things that he continues failing. They're on the screen. I just saw a few police officers, plain clothes, masked, and they have an AK-47. So that person may not even have a tear gas canister. So what are you trying to say? Are you telling us that you are willing to kill more and more persons? So in short, let him address this urgent issue by firstly dealing with his Inspector General of Police. The way these protesters are being handled is not the proper or ordinary way of handling protests. Secondly, the question of immediately trying to address the question of wastages and all that is something he can do. The other day they were a bit happy when he said he's going to do away with the CAS. That makes some sense. The question of these particular budgets that are placed for persons such as the CSE, the Prime Cabinet Secretary's spouse and all that. And again today in some of the media houses, some of the local dailies in our country were trying to give us a story of increased salaries for a section of the parliamentarians. So for as long as we're waking up to such news, there is no such goodwill we can see from the side of the president. If Kenyans wake up to the story that says, there is a budgetary slash or budgetary cut on the part of the Parliamentary Service Commission, people will be happy. There'll be some salary cut for MCAs. Kenyans will see some sense of what you're talking about. If you say that you're no longer borrowing some funds, it will make some sense. If you tell us that the expressway toll fees that we are paying every month will be reduced a bit, because one of the stories in the Business Daily today was that the shilling has gained against the dollar, yet the amount we are paying as toll fee on the expressway is still high. So there are certain real-time conversations. If we have them, these boys will not be on the streets, honestly speaking. Make it easy for these boys to get their passports. Some of them have talents. They're skilled. Every single day they're queuing around your house. You're making them take matatus from here to Embu just to go and try and see whether they can get a passport in Embu. So there are simple things that if he does, he will even make it easy for us to export our own talents and knowledge to other countries that are willing to appreciate the same. So this man, the problem with him, so once he assumed the office, and I don't know why, it is most of our with President Uhuru, this was the case. Kibaki made some sense in terms of how he assumed his office. But these other presidents of late, the person is very sensible with you around campaign time and before he becomes the president. But when that particular person sits on this particular seat, you'll be surprised. You will no longer hear about him, or he will have changed, or he will not be able to appreciate the real-time issues that are affecting you. In short, President Ruto is not expected to meet all the youth. He is simply expected, number one, to take off all police officers who are killing us. Number two, to waive the fee for all those who are now in hospital facilities, or those particular ones who are suffering gunshot wounds. Number three, pay off some of these families who have lost their young boys and girls who are fending, who are providing for these particular families. Four, show us your humane side. Visit these particular families, condole with them. Wapatie pole, show them that you are their president. Five, this is your country, you are the head of state. Walk around. If you want to interact with them, interact with them. But for now, that is the easiest or the simplest thing that you can do. In terms of protecting property, he's doing well. Let the police do what they can in terms of try and repulsing the youth. These boys who you are being told that they're coming to break into Quickmart, they are not armed with a panga or anything. The best they have is a stone. And that may not make our officers shoot at someone who is just carrying one small stone. Seriously speaking, sometimes you have to be reasonable. The number may be huge of boys who are coming to take away or steal or break into some private properties, which is very shameful and unfair. But now the approach, the response that we are giving, or the repulse,
whether it's proportionate
it is
or
not proportional at all. And Justice Chacha Mwita, last week, it's some of the issues he talked about. He said he directed the Inspector General to have his officers not to use excessive force or unproportional force. In terms of what we can see, it's already again in breach of that court order. And it is the same court that allowed him to keep his military on our streets, even as the LSK has tried to oppose the same. So it is not fair. You appreciate the law when it's on your side, and you do not appreciate it when those particular directives are against what you want. So for now, our police are doing a bit well, but in terms of the way they mask themselves, the way they come in unidentified clothings, unmarked vehicles, again masking themselves, hiding their faces, that is sending a very, very negative signal to these boys. Because they're just thinking that these guys are coming to kill us. And by the way, yesterday, in one of the local Kamukunjis, I think it was even going round, I had one of the boys who was saying that any police officer who may come, who may not be in police uniform, will regard him as an enemy of ours, which is true, because you will see them, when a police officer who is in uniform approaches them, they run away. But now, where will you place someone who is wearing a mask and is not in police uniform? And two, if that person shoots, or even the media tries to cover, you will not know where this person is. Three, some of the discoveries we're making, or what you're being told, is that some of these officers, some of these persons are not even in this police service. You do not know where they have been recalled from. So,
is there a law that perhaps would give the police officers that leeway to civilian clothing while in an operation?
No, the National Police Service Act is a bit clear in terms of how you... In fact, if you are Zainab, if you ask any of these protesters, if you're a protester and you approach a police officer, according to what our law wants, and you ask him, sir, identify yourself to me, he's supposed to tell you his name and his police force number. That has never happened in our country. In fact, as a lawyer, I've been to Central Police Station. You come to meet the OCS. You want to see the OCS, and the OCS doesn't want to see you. Forget about what you can see on the streets. That is the kind of police service that we have in our country. So I don't know sometimes, is it because of the training, or is it because of the kind of directives that they're given from those above them? I've been to the office of the Regional Commander of Police. I can assure you, you will be surprised by the queue of Kenyans who are seated down there who want to see him. And you may find someone who is there since morning up until 2 p.m. and he may not meet the regional police commander. Why? Because this person may be having a problem with an OCS somewhere. These are the real-time issues that we have suffered, those of us in the justice system we have seen, and which now the good thing is that the media is focusing a lot on what's happening. It's basic. Those police officers who are using Ajana, the ones the media has focused, bring them, just pick them out, deal with them. Deal with them. Show the people of Kenya that at least the ones who have shot at the journalists and the innocent people, or those ones who are passively the killer cops, deal with them. It's not every police officer who is bad. We have seen those ones that are now trying to escort those who are going home. That's a good way of, on the part of the National Police Service. But vitu ndogo that the president can address through his IG should be simple. He's the boss, he can direct the Inspector General. Today I saw a communication from the office of the DPP again, saying that they're going to prosecute any persons who damage private property. It's a good thing. Also, the DPP should do a communication to the DCI, asking the DCI to submit files of all police officers who have also involved themselves in anti-police, yes, in those kind of conducts that have gone against the dictates or the code of conduct of the National Police Service. Let this thing go both ways. Arrest the civilian who is making a mistake or the criminal. Also arrest the police officer who is misbehaving. That is how I think we'll be able to move forward as a country.
All right.
I just want to urge the authorities in this country to restrain themselves from using excessive force, especially when it comes to persons living with disability. We've seen even people with disability being tear gassed in the streets. We've seen, we have another case of a lady in Nyeri who is actually deaf, because some of these people they cannot even understand sometimes when violence in a situation where they don't understand what is actually happening. They cannot comprehend. Like persons living with autism, sometimes it's a bit hard for them to understand what is actually happening in the environment. So kindly, we need a lot of restraint when it comes to also using excessive force to an environment where they are mixed up. Persons living with disability are also part of this community. So anytime they're using, they are going to actually quell any disruptions, let us use minimal force. Because now those people, we've seen ladies being tear gassed in town, persons living with disability who are being tear gassed in town. Some are even being left in the streets when everyone, we saw what happened, people with disability being forgotten when everyone is being evacuated away from danger. So we just urge authorities to actually consider persons living with disability in this whole issue. When there is violence, kindly take care of these people, because we've seen now this young man is being shot for, maybe he didn't even understand what was actually, he would not comprehend what was actually happening. So it's a sad day for parents and also for persons living with disability. We've lost a young life. That is a very sad thing through police violence. So let's kindly preserve life. Life is precious.
Kiswahili hamtaki tuongee hata sisi.
Tunaona aje umetosheka. Uko sawa? Umetosha.
Sema.
All right, that was a press conference in Nakuru County.
In the country, which certainly has been what has triggered this, the protests.
I think they would help if there was goodwill on the government's part to not only just come up with measures to cut off on excessive spending by certain offices or certain departments of government, but also to use that the monies that are now gained from these, or at least harvested from these extra expenditures, to go into service, public service, perhaps going into servicing e-citizen, going into the passports. My brother was talking about passports earlier. Right now, we have seen less, I don't know whether to call it a less clog or less demand with the issuance of the passport, but you can see that they moved the issuance from the 4,500 and the 7,500 to the, I think, 919, the 10,000 one, the one that goes all the way to 10,000 shillings. So if we're able to bring these monies into improving public service, you have issues like the DCI clearance. These are issues, by the way, that mostly affect young Kenyans. Issues that this clearance, the credit score, where you see that you get clearance regarding loans and services, those kinds of services. If we can go, if that money can go to that kind of, yes, correct, the CRB. If that money can go into servicing some of these installations, if it can go into engaging more JSS teachers into permanent and pensionable positions, then that will make sense. But if we're just seeing cuts, but we're not going to see improvement in services from these so-called cuts, then it's not going to make sense. I don't know if this is still the position, but as of yesterday, I think I saw that parliamentarians are going to get a hike in their salaries and allowances. It's ironic that they would even have that going on at a time like this when, like I previously said, we are on uncharted waters, uncharted political waters. Why would they allow themselves to go to be put again in the middle of such an unpopular situation with members of the public? So if it's possible for us to get those austerity cuts serving Kenyans in terms of improved public service, then it will make sense. And one thing, Zainab, and I would hope that our government would not be deceptive with this issue. Kenyans do not have an issue with paying taxes, number one. Kenyans do not have an issue with budgetary allocations, but Kenyans have an issue with hemorrhaging of our economy.
How the money is spent.
Exactly, how money is spent in this country. That is the issue we have. And as far as that is concerned,
imetolewa juu amepatikana watu wake. Alama ya pili ambayo ilikuwa kwa peka, nilikuwa nalia nikasema leo waliweka risasi 20 ya Kenya nzima ndio imemmaliza. Haikuwa ni hiyo, tukaambiwa hapo ni dawa. Walikuwa wanaweka dawa ingia wapi? Ingia kwa mwili. Nikauliza swali la tatu, na mbona mkuu mmoja umefura upande moja? Akasema hapo ni bullnet ilipikwa mahali pale, na hiyo bullnet ilikuwa ya nguvu, ilitokea huku ikapasua mshipa